You're watching World Talks on TVP World. I'm Aaron Darman. As Russia's invasion into Ukraine continues, the case of Kosovo can tell us much about the fight for independence and the struggle to keep it. In 2008, Kosovo declared it was splitting from Serbia, and while the US and many EU member states, including Poland, recognised the move, countries like Serbia and Russia refused to accept it. And I'm joined now in the studio by the President of Kosovo, Vjosa Osmani. Thank you for making the time.
Thank you for having me.
Now, President, let's talk about the ongoing tensions with Serbia. Do you sense that the relationship is improving, or does it remain volatile?
Well, the very first differentiation that we have to make is that, oftentimes we hear about tensions between Kosovo and Serbia. And I think it is so important that we do not get into the trap of both sidism, because it's not like both Kosovo and Serbia are contributing to tensions. There's one country, that is Serbia, that has turned itself into Putin's strongest proxy country in Europe. And then there's Kosovo and other countries in the region that are constantly victims of acts of aggression by Serbia, which of course plays also in the hands of Russian interest. And Russia and Putin want to open a new front against the West by destabilizing the Western Balkans. And for that reason, it is crucial that Kosovo is working hand in hand with allies, with partners from the democratic world, to make sure that we stop these destabilization initiatives from Serbia, aided and abetted by Russia, and at the same time that we strengthen our defense so that when Serbia, while they're intending to take us all back to the past, we can, of course, defend ourselves, but at the same time continue, as we have in the past 16 years of independence, only contribute to peace and security in our region and beyond. Now, of course, since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, as you rightly pointed out, has started, there is a growing tension in the region, in the entire region of the Western Balkans. And again, that is because in our neighborhood, there is a country that wants to serve Russian interest of destabilizing the rest of the Western Balkan countries. I believe there is hope, of course, for a Western Balkans that ultimately joins the European Union and NATO. But the precondition to achieving such results is treating Serbia for what it is. As I said, a satellite state of Russia, which is only increasing military, economic, and political cooperation with Russia, is the only country with no sanctions against Russia after the invasion of Ukraine, and of course serves as a state where there is a safe haven for all of the Russian oligarchs, for Russia Today, for so-called Russian humanitarian centers, which in fact are spy centers. And in this way, they are giving in to these malign interests against Europe as a project that needs to be whole, free, and at peace. And it can be whole, free, and at peace only with the Western Balkans joining it. So if Serbia is treated for what it is, which is, as I said, a Russian proxy state led by an autocrat which used to be Milosevic's minister for propaganda during the wars in Kosovo, Bosnia, Herzegovina, and Croatia, of course, then Serbia would get the message and they would, in fact, turn to the West. Otherwise, the active appeasement policy that we see nowadays is only emboldening and encouraging Serbia to move towards violence rather than, peaceful debates, peaceful discussions on outstanding issues.
There have been repeated failed negotiations between Kosovo and Serbia to normalise those ties, and Serbia almost certainly has the opposite view of you in respect to Kosovo's role in the broader European region. How do you come to the table to ensure that those ties can be normalised when the rhetoric is on such far ends of the spectrum?
Look, I believe the people of Poland are in the position to understand us so well. We went through hell because of the Milosevic regime that was leading Serbia at that time and caused about 150,000 civilian deaths because he wanted to destroy everything that was not like him. Now, we were victims of genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. There has never been justice delivered for the victims in my country. I still, every single day, meet mothers of children that are missing, that are in massive graves in Serbia. Every single day, I meet, fathers who lost everyone in their family, survivors who were the only kid jumping from a window where all of the other kids were burned out alive. Practically a horror war where we lost so many, where 2/3 of our people became refugees and IDPs, where we lost all of our homes. We are a nation built from the ashes. We had to rise from the ashes to build the freedom, democracy, and independence that we have today, which was, according to the International Court of Justice, in full compliance with international law. So in that sense, of course, almost every democratic country in the world has recognized Kosovo's independence, including Poland, and we have excellent relations which we are building. Despite of all of that pain, despite of all of that struggle, despite of the sacrifice and the very high price we had to pay for our freedom, we've extended a hand of cooperation to Serbia, knowing that good neighborly relations are a precondition to long-lasting peace, and young generations deserve that. Our kids are the very first generation that are growing up in peace. Our great-grandparents had to go through a war. Our grandparents, our parents, we had to go through a horrendous war. So our kids finally have that chance to grow up in peace, and they have not gone through a war. And because of their sake, because of the young generation, we've extended that hand of cooperation. So when we sit down on that table, just imagine the situation. On one side, you have the president of Serbia, who used to serve as minister for propaganda under Milosevic, who used to make speeches calling for genocide in the middle of his parliament. And on the other side is the prime minister of Kosovo, a prisoner of war of that regime. That is the best picture of who Kosovo is, extending the hand of cooperation and friendship, despite of the pain, despite of the lack of justice. And what we face today is the fact that even 25 years after that war, where we were the victims and Serbia was the aggressor, the current president of Serbia still continues to fight the very existence of our country, which is no different than the war that Putin is waging against Ukraine. It's about a nation's right to exist, a people's right to exist, to live in freedom, to make its own choices. And of course, no matter how hard and with how many hurdles the road ahead is, we're not planning on giving up, because the sacrifice has been just too high. We have lost the highest number of children from any other war in former Yugoslavia per capita, and we want to look ahead. We want to look towards the European Union and NATO, and over 97% of our people are in favor of Euro-Atlantic integration, which is where we believe, where we belong as Europeans. But at the same time, we need the continued support of the European Union and the United States so that the hard-won freedoms and the values for which so many of our people lost their lives can be defended and preserved, and not to allow autocrats like Vučić to take us all back, because they want to undo everything we've jointly achieved.
And so you mentioned the EU and NATO there. What does that path to the European Union look like? Given Serbia's position in the region, how do you ensure that you can really make a solid pitch to the European Union that Kosovo should be part of it? And what does that path to getting there look like?
For us, there's no shortcut, and we're not even asking for a shortcut. We simply believe that whoever does their homework best, whoever really undertakes reforms on rule of law, on economy, on fundamental rights and freedoms, and works on their democracy, deserves to move ahead towards the European Union. Because it should not be only about wanting EU money. It should primarily be about joining and fighting for EU values, for the very fundaments and the pillars on which the EU stands. And that's what we want, which is why Kosovo today is the strongest and most established democracy in the Western Balkans, with the highest number of economic reforms that are really leading us in the right direction, and the country that is a champion on rule of law, the #1 champion according to many international indices on European soil, when it comes to rule of law reforms in the past 3 years, and one of the top 3 worldwide. And that's why in the Summit for Democracy organized by President Biden, Kosovo was selected to chair the rule of law cohort of the Summit for Democracy precisely because of our reforms. Now, we know that the job is not done, and in our case, the issue is more complex than just doing the work from our side, because 5 countries in the EU have not recognized Kosovo yet, but there is a formula that can make them feel comfortable while at least giving us a candidate status as a country that is at the 100% alignment with all European Union common foreign and security policy decisions. So there are many ways and many formulas that we have proposed. It simply takes political will. I think it's fundamental that the EU understands that just like with Ukraine, Georgia, and Moldova, the Western Balkans is in the geostrategic interest of the EU itself to make sure that we move ahead towards the EU, but not to allow a country like Serbia that has undergone from a 96% alignment to a 46% alignment with the EU to get there first and then to block everyone else in the Western Balkans, since they cause problems to all of the other neighbors, not just Kosovo. So it's crucial that there is a merit-based process. That's what we want, fairness and merit-based. And if that is going to be looked at, I can reassure you, Kosovo will become the front runner. If there are no political blockades that are merely based on political domestic considerations of individual member states rather than on the work and the reforms that we're undertaking, then we would truly move faster than any other country in Europe. And I don't shy away to say we are well ahead on reforms compared to many countries that have, already have a candidate status and have opened many chapters.
Talking of political will, do you feel like that there is enough political will to bring Kosovo into the European Union? And do you think it's a bottom line that Kosovo and Serbia need to come to some form of an agreement before Kosovo can be integrated?
Of course, normalization of relations between Kosovo and Serbia is deemed as one of the criteria to move towards the European Union and ultimately get full membership. But I'm not talking about full membership today. I'm simply talking about giving Kosovo a candidate status so that we can start discussions, we can open chapters, we can negotiate them. And ultimately, I strongly believe that if strong messages are given to Serbia, they will also understand that they cannot get EU money without EU values, because they should go hand in hand. Unfortunately, that's not currently the case, but they must go hand in hand. So if Serbia would get that clear message from the EU, which is not that clear, to be very frank, at this point, then it would also lead them in the right direction, one that is towards normalization of relations with all of its neighbors. Because again, they don't only cause problems towards Kosovo, but also against Bosnia-Herzegovina and other countries in the region. So if they were to accept that good neighborly relations is a fundamental principle towards moving towards the EU, that would help the entire region, and I think we would fast move towards membership. But I'm not talking about 2 or 3 years. I do see a strong political will among some countries. For example, Poland has been a great supporter. Many countries that truly understand how transformational membership in the European Union is, not just economically, but also on the very fundamentals of the values of democracy and human rights. But then there are many that hesitate, and of course we have to work with them so that they are convinced that this is in the best interest of the entire continent.
And just lastly, 25 years ago, NATO intervention resulted in the creation of an independent Kosovo. There are voices now in Kosovo that Russia wants to distract Europe from Ukraine, potentially a new conflict in the Balkans. What do you make of that?
I believe that that's exactly what Russia wants, and they're using Serbia to get that plan implemented. But we're working very closely with our allies. As you know, our most strategic and important ally has constantly been the United States of America. They continue to contribute to our peace, security, democracy, and help us defend our sovereignty as well as our independence from any potential attack from Serbia. Also, EU member states have been there with us every step of the way, as well as important NATO members. So we have a NATO presence, including Polish soldiers, whom I want to thank from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of the people of Kosovo for helping us get to the country that is peaceful, that is secure, that is safe for all of its citizens. And despite of the challenges that we face in our northern border from time to time from Serbia, and Poland knows best what it means to have a neighbor like that, we still have become a very resilient democracy because we've had friends by our side, friends like the United States, Poland, other countries, other member states. And I've had the luck of having Polish soldiers actually serve in my hometown. So I've seen firsthand the great contribution that they have made. And once again, their service is never forgotten. It's absolutely appreciated from all the people of Kosovo.
President of Kosovo, Vjosa Osmani, thank you again for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
And that's World Talks. Do stay with us here on TVP World. I'm Aaron Darman. Goodbye for now.